Pleasant day, everyone. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Charles David M. Ymata, a second-year business administration student of the Far Eastern University. And I am going to talk about how the heroic discourse concealed the real situation in the Philippines, which encompasses the concept of heroism with reference to overseas Filipino workers and how the former President Corazon Aquino hails them as mga bagong bayani in her speech in 1988 during the rise of labor exports from the Philippines. Let me begin by stating the reasons why Filipino workers are going abroad, such as there are much better opportunities in other countries compared to our country, for Filipino workers to support their families financially, and also because we had to rely on our overseas workers to save the economy after the Marcos era, which left our economy in tatters. It is evident that a lot of Filipino workers are going abroad due to the lack of opportunities and benefits in our country, the Philippines. Working overseas has become a pakikipagsapalaran or risk instead of a guaranteed way to foster. What was becoming evident at the time, however, is that while working overseas is risky, it is so much better than the sufficiency of alternatives available in the country. In order for the family of OFWs to survive and support them financially, Filipino workers are going abroad even if they have to sacrifice and endure hardships just to help their families. Also, during 1988, debt service consumed higher than a third of the country's budget. As a result, about half of the people were suffering from poverty within this time frame. And to alleviate the country's economic problems, the government has to depend on overseas employment. Moving forward, the overseas Filipino workers or OFWs are now labeled as the bagong bayani ng bayan because of their noble sacrifices in going to different countries in order to make a living for their respective families. This heroic discourse is a result of the national and global setting from which it formed, and this is best understood by looking at the past background wherein Filipinos first traveled overseas for employment, as well as the changes in local and global political economic structures. With the suffering and sacrifice of OFWs abroad, former President Corazon Aquino leads her to label them as bagong bayani. Furthermore, bagong bayani has been profoundly influenced by the feminization of migration and the discussions around it. The heroic discourse of migrants as performers and domestic assistants overseas was further enhanced and normalized by societal discourse about their employment and victimhood. The framing of the OFWs as self-sacrificing modern-day heroes has colonial roots as well, from Jesus Christ's suffering to Caesar's death. Evidently, bagong bayani is a religious, cultural, and historical depiction that serves as a powerful metaphor for OFWs and their involvement in global economy and national economies. Apart from that, former President Corazon Aquino's characterization of migrant workers as heroes has also contributed significantly to the heroic discourse, since her whole administration has been based on the logic of suffering and sacrifice. Aquino extravagantly complimented migrants and their sacrifices, not only for their families but also for the nation, and she claims she would be eternally grateful to them. She urged them to hold their heads up and be proud of their efforts, regardless of how little it appeared to others, and assure them that the government would do its utmost to provide welfare. Also, Aquino's foreign employment policies exemplified aspects of continuity and change and continued to recognize migration as a resource-generating endeavor worthy of national government attention, regulation, and control, while also shifting to policies geared towards worker empowerment and well-being. Moreover, with the use of investigations, resolutions, and suggested legislative proposals, Congress brought the issue of migrant workers to the attention of the Aquino administration. Those on welfare and protection received the most attention from legislators on abroad work from 1987 to 1991. While Republic Act 7111 offers migrants incentives such as scholarships, shelter, financial assistance, as well as other programs, and the legislation's policy articulated in the statute connected foreign migration to settle the foreign debt of the country. These legislative initiatives focus on reported fatalities, execution, and migrant worker conditions overseas. To some extent, this already indicates Congress' growing realization of the sacrifice and suffering of overseas workers in the late 1980s, and therefore the necessity to propose legislation to alleviate their conditions. Other forms of laws and resolutions were also introduced to secure OFWs. Gulf crisis resolutions, for example, had already erupted when Aquino went for Hong Kong to convey her speech regarding the Bagong Bayani, and other people who expressed their concerns for the status of OFWs and their possible return to the Philippines. Additionally, people under enlistment, OFWs' rights, and administrative and policies were established to ensure the prohibition of unauthorized recruiting, as well the efficiency and responsibility of the POEA and OWA. On the other hand, we cannot deny the fact that our Filipino workers are going abroad because of the lack of better opportunities and jobs in our country. We are just referring to our OFWs as heroes in order to divert our thought from the reality that our workers are departing from the country in search of greener pastures and better opportunities. The issue with the heroic discourse was that although it appears to uplift migrants, it normalizes the dangers and miseries of traveling overseas. It also minimizes the issues of why OFWs are displaced primarily by the Philippine community. It explains to some degree why labor export has continued through time and become such an accepted fact of living in the Philippines. Hence, the Philippines really lack better opportunities and jobs, and there's still a need to settle our foreign debt, which is 11.6 trillion as of the end of July 2021, and it has continuously increased until now because of the pandemic. However, we cannot always let our Filipino workers go abroad to achieve a better life for themselves and their families, because it might lead to brain drain in our country where we can lose lots of skilled workers. Our government should also create better opportunities and greener pastures for our Filipino workers so that they will remain in our country and help us in achieving development through the years. On a final note, OFWs who are leaving our country sees a lot about the lack of better opportunities in our country. We are just using the terms Bagong Bayani for us to sugarcoat the shortcomings in our country. Instead of focusing on giving betterment to our country and providing better opportunities for Filipino people, we just let them leave our country because it also helps us in gaining growth through the remittances. Their sacrifices and sufferings also led us and former President Corazon Aquino in calling them Bagong Bayani, and there are legislations and actions to protect the welfare and promote the rights of Filipino workers abroad during her presidency. In this contemporary era, it is imperative that instead of letting our Filipino workers go abroad, we should keep them in our country through the creation of better opportunities and works which they can benefit from. Because we are losing qualified workers who will also contribute to the betterment of our nation. Filipino workers have the freedom to work abroad, but if we create better opportunities and greener pastures, we can be able to keep them and help our country in becoming prosperous and fortunate just like other countries. Thank you.